Following a vote against it by UAW workers at the Chicago Ford plant, there's a very real possibility that workers will reject the national tentative Ford labor contract. The Detroit Free Press says, according to its tally, 53% of the more than 31,000 UAW workers to vote so far have rejected the proposed contract. There are 52,900 UAW workers at Ford. A majority has to vote for the deal in order for it to be ratified. Voting ends Friday. Striking airport workers at JFK and LaGuardia in New York were joined by other airport workers around the country in a one-day strike Thursday, demanding $15 an hour and union rights. Thousands of workers took part. Striker Jose Cruz works at JFK International Airport in New York.
What I'm hoping for is that a lot of people look at the situation that we go through with cleaning planes. We have to do security check where they want us to, check for terrorist activities, stuff like that. We're not being compensated enough to do all the things that's required. I pay a little bit of rent that I pay my bills, and at the end of the day, I still have an empty fridge. Somebody, shouldn't be living like that day by day or check to check.
The workers said they were striking not only for $15 an hour and union rights, but for their families. 32BJ SEIU supports the workers. The union says while airlines are making record profits, airport workers who help make those profits possible are struggling to survive in jobs paying poverty wages with little or no affordable health care and few paid days off. Jose Cruz says that airport workers are in solidarity with the fast food Fight for 15 to raise wages and get organizing rights.
Everybody was fighting for the 15 for fast food because, those companies are multi-billion. But is JetBlue not a multi-billion-dollar company? Kind of falls in the same basket.
The United Auto Workers and the German trade union IG Metall have formed a transnational partnership initiative. They say it's a project to raise wages and improve working conditions through German-style works councils at German auto plants in the U.S. South. The new partnership will have an office in Spring Hill, Tennessee. The American Federation of Government Employees says it has not yet heard from the Department of Defense regarding changes to personnel policies for civilian employees. The union says the Pentagon must consult with AFGE and other unions over the proposed changes to the civilian personnel system. AFGE represents roughly 250,000 civilian defense workers. It says the Pentagon has a legal obligation to consult with labor unions representing the affected workers.
Workers Independent News is brought to you with support from Union-owned Bank of Labor, a division of Brotherhood Bank and Trust, member FDIC, equal opportunity lender, doing whatever it takes to meet your business lending needs for new construction, remodeling, or building training facilities. Online at bankoflabor.com.
You've been listening to WIN, Workers Independent News. For more information, visit laborradio.org.
It's time for the Rick Smith Show.
I want you to get up now. I want all of you to get up out of your chairs. I want you to get up right now and go to the window, open it, and stick your head out and yell, "I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore!"
I don't want to abolish government. I simply want to reduce it to the size where I could drag it into the bathroom and drown in the bathtub.
You bet I cut the taxes at the top.
How dare you? How dare you? Go ahead, make my day.
The Rick Smith Show starts now.
This town gonna be here long after I'm gone. East side, west side, people don't surrender. They've been down, but they still rock on. Oh, and this time is my time. All right, love or hate, it don't matter. 'Cause I'm gonna stand and fight. This time is my time. She got her ups and downs, but love or hate, it don't matter. 'Cause this is my time.
And welcome, brothers, sisters, working class heroes. This is the Rick Smith Show. Thanks for being here today on the big program. Lots to get to, lots to talk about. Postal banking. Yes. What the heck is postal banking? Well, doing a little banking at the post office, for folks who don't have bank accounts, which surprisingly as many as 30% of the people that live in our little country here, about 100 million people do not have access to a bank account, which I got to be honest, I can't fathom, but what is, and if that weren't the case, you wouldn't see these huge payday lending companies all over our urban centers taking advantage of those 100 million people without bank accounts. Also, they would do a little bit of minor lending, help you out without the 300% interest down the road. Just kind of a good thing. Also, might save our post office, might make it even more profitable. And I know the rhetoric says, well, the post offices are failing because of the internet. What's killing the Postal Service right now is the Bush era mandate that they pre-fund their pension and their health care 75 years into the future and then do it here in the next couple of years. That's what's harming them. And we'll talk a little bit about that. Lots of stuff, good stuff today. How do women make a better living? Policies to help women and the family move ahead. Also, it is Our Future Friday. The good folks from the Campaign for America's Future are going to be here. And we'll do some of the budget talk as well with our friend Eric Epstein over at Rock the Capitol. Yesterday, we talked about the strike that went on in cities across the country, where the people who clean the airplanes, the people who help you at the airport, they went on strike to demand better wages, hours, conditions, a voice on the job. Well, they returned to work last night, and guess what? You knew it had to happen. You knew it was going to happen. It always seems to happen that the company, one of them gets upset and says, we're going to fire somebody. And that's what happened over at Newark's Liberty Airport last night. As the workers filed back into the facility, the folks at Prime Flight Aviation Services, they decided to can 3 of the workers. And I don't know this yet, I'm looking into it, but I would have to argue, just looking at union busting 101, that probably your most ardent supporters of the union, the people who are saying we need this the most, and also the most vulnerable. And you look at one of the news stories that I came across on this, and that most vulnerable part stuck right out. Because right in the first sentence, as they're laying this out, saying 3 workers lost their job with Prime and Flight Aviation Services tonight, one of them homeless. So they decided to fire the homeless guy, as if things aren't bad enough for him. We're going to fire him, making $8.25 an hour. We're going to send him to the curb to make an example. And that's what this is really about. Now, it is my understanding this was above boards. Everyone signed on, perfectly legal, because understand you have a legally protected right in this country to engage in concerted activities such as a strike, and you cannot be fired for them. That's the law. That's the reality. But it doesn't stop these companies from doing this. It doesn't stop them from picking out 1 or 2, or in this case 3, and canning them as an example, as a chilling effect to ripple through the rest of the workforce. This is why when the Employee Free Choice Act was brought up, this is why, if you remember back in 2006, 2007, into the Obama term, we were pitching the idea of passing the Employee Free Choice Act, which would have given workers the right to a contract. Once you go through the process, you sign the cards, you begin the process of negotiating, and in a set time, you have to have a contract. You cannot go on years into the future, 15, 20 years down the road without a contract. It's going to be, you negotiate one or one will be imposed. I liked that, good idea. But also the other part of this, if you do this kind of nonsense, picking someone out and firing them, the penalties were tripled. Because right now, this homeless guy got fired. He's going to lose at least a day's pay. The penalty for doing this today, as the law stands, is that day's pay. Now, let's say our homeless friend went and got a job working day labor somewhere and made $8 an hour. The penalty to the company would be 25 cents an hour, because they take what they would have lost minus what they earned, and that's the penalty. And I got to be honest, that's not really a penalty. In my estimation, not really a penalty. And even the $8.25 an hour to send a chilling effect throughout the entire workforce is, in the corporate world mind, money well spent. Because if you can undermine an entire organizing drive, if you can usurp the will of the workers, it is money well spent. And to me, this is one of those things that everyone should be outraged on. This is something the laws should be coming down on. This is something that this company should be made an example of. But sadly, with the corporate mentality that our lawmakers have, our laws are weak. They're pathetic. They're 80 years old and outdated, and all of the loopholes, have been strengthened. So as I look at this, you look at these workers here making $8.25 an hour, no health care, no pension, none of that stuff. In major cities, New York, Boston, Chicago, these are poverty wage jobs. And you got these folks who are saying, look, we want better wages, hours, conditions. And what they get is this nonsense. So we're working on getting someone to come talk to us about that, because, at the end of this, really the message in this are bully corporations who get away with this stuff, and there's no penalty. Maybe we should be calling a congressman saying, like I remember as a kid watching Schoolhouse Rock, there ought to be a law. There ought to be a law about being fired illegally. There ought to be a law. And talking about, being fired for absolutely no reason, and I understand, and I do, Pennsylvania is an at-will employment state. You do not need a reason to fire someone. And I think we've all gotten that kind of Stockholm syndrome mentality that we just take that at face value and it is what it is. Unless you have a labor contract, unless you have a contract that lays out your terms of employment and dates and all that stuff, then there's a process of being fired there. But without a contract, without being a member of a union, you're at will. In fact, purple tennis shoes, your breath smell funny, you're out the door. Without any recourse, unless obviously they say you're old or a woman or something about your religion, one of those federally protected things. But anything else, you just, I don't like the way you look today. You're out the door, and you're done. And your only recourse is to file unemployment. And I look at this guy in New York, and it's another one of those moments where you go, here's a guy, just being a good Samaritan, and two, thinking about the environment, I guess. This 52-year-old guy took a job working at Walmart in New York. Was making about $9 an hour. His job was to go out and pull all the carts in and, pick up the parking lot and make sure it doesn't look horrible, which is what he did. So as he's picking up the trash, he's taking cans of, soda cans or beer cans or whatever, and he's putting them in a bag. And in the lunchroom, he leaves the bag and he begins collecting aluminum cans. At the end of a couple of months, he takes the bag to a recycling place and gets a whopping $5.10. Well, Walmart finds out about the windfall of $5.10 and says, "Hey, that's our money," and they fire him. Now, fortunately for him, this caught the attention of the news media, and they did a little GoFundMe account, which he's raised about, I guess, about $3,000 now. Still no job, but he's raised about $3,000, which, if you think about it, about 2 months worth of salary that he wasn't going to get from Walmart. But this is the kind of nonsense that happens in workplaces all across this country. Now, Walmart's response was, that's our stuff. He's stealing from us. The trash you leave in the Walmart parking lot, the stuff that employees, the soda cans that they throw in the trash, evidently Walmart's. Now, my question as I was reading through the story is, does Walmart have a recycling policy? Do they recycle? And is this somehow taking money and food off of the tables of the Walton family? Well, I do not know. But it is sad, sad stuff nonetheless. And just kind of, frustrating and angering. So there you go. I'm going to take a quick break. Right back after this. Stick around. You're listening to The Rick Smith Show. We're working people. Come to talk.